Hello everyone. In this video I thought we'd take a different approach from the last few videos of the PowerPoint slides. So in this video we're going to be covering how to convert a non-deterministic finite automaton to a deterministic finite automaton. Okay, so first I think we should define what is epsilon closure. We're going to be using this a lot, so I think it's very important we cover this. So epsilon closure basically means all like reachable states. That's pretty much what it means. So if we're asked to find what is the epsilon closure of 1, well, the epsilon closure of 1 is a set. You include 1 and you also include all the states that are reachable from 1. So we can see from 1 we can go to 3 using a jump, the epsilon, and from 3 we can go to 2, and we see also that 4 is reachable. So writing them in order, 2 is reachable because we can get to it by going through 3. 4 is reachable because we can get to it by jumping to 3 first, then to 2. So 3 is reachable and 4 is reachable. So that's what epsilon closure is. So now that we know epsilon closure, the first thing we do is find the epsilon closure of the starting state. So epsilon closure of 1 is, we include 1, and from 1 we can get to 2. 3 is reachable, and 4 is not reachable because we need to read an S, but we're only going to the states that are reachable by not reading anything or by reading epsilon. So from 3 we said we couldn't go anywhere. 2 can also go to 8, but first I'm going to do 5 because to write them in order. So 1 can go to 5. 5 is reachable, and from 5 you can get to 6. So 6 is reachable. And now we'll do, after 6 you can't get to 7. So from 2 you can get to 8 as well, and from 8 we can't get to 9. So this is our starting state, and we'll just call this A. So over here I'm going to start drawing it out. Here we have A. And next thing we'll do is we need to find out all of the transitions for each symbol in our alphabet that we can go from A. So in this example, our alphabet is the symbol S and we have the symbol W. So now we need to ask, okay, if we're in A and we see S in A, where can we go? So S on A, where can we go? Well, A is these states right here. So from 1, if we read an S, we can't get anywhere. From 2, if we read an S, we can't get anywhere. Obviously, we can get to 4 if we read an S, but consider only the transitions coming from the current state. So 1, we read S, can't get anywhere. 2 doesn't have any transitions with S. 3, we can get to 4 with S, so I'm just going to write that here. From 5, we can't get, it has no transitions with S. 6, we can get to 7. And 8 doesn't have anything with S. So we have 4 and 7. We find the epsilon closure of those states. So what would that be? Well, we know we always include themselves. And now we look at 4's epsilon closure. From 4 we can get to 2. So I'm going to write 2. We can also get to 3. From 4 we can get to 8 either by going to 2 then to 8, or we can just go directly to 8, but either way 8's included. And that's it for 4. Now we cover 7. 7's epsilon closure is we can get to 5, and from 5 we can get to 6, and after that we can't go anywhere else. So I'm just going to rewrite them in order. So we have 2, and I'm going to call this state B. So what we just did is saying, if we're in A and we see an S, we can get to the set of states, which is B. So I'm going to depict that here. If we're in A, we see S, we can get to B. Now we've covered S on A, but now we have to do the other symbol for A. So what if we're in A and we see W? So W on A. Well, A are these states over here. I'm going to erase this. A is this. And if we're in 1, now we check for W like last time, but instead of checking for S, now we check for W. So if we're in 1 and we see W, nowhere. 2, we see W, nowhere. 3 doesn't have any transitions with W. 5 doesn't. 6 doesn't have any. And 8 does. So from 8, we can get to 9 if we see W. So that means we have to find the epsilon closure of 9. And we know from epsilon closure always includes itself, so 9. And if we're 9, what states are reachable? So we can get to 10. We can go from 10 to 11. And it looks like that's all of the reachable states. So now, since this is a new set of states, I'm going to make a new variable. We can call it C. So if we're in A and we see W, we're going to go to C. So that takes care of all the symbols for A, because remember, this is a deterministic finite automaton, so we should know where to go for each possible symbol. So now we're going to go check B. What happens if we're in B and we see S? Well, B consists of all of these states, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So if we're in 2 and we see S, we can't go anywhere. 3 does. We can get to 4 with S. So I'm just going to write that here. We can get to 4. From 4, we can't get anywhere because it has no transitions with S. 5, can't get anywhere. 6, you can get to 7. So I'm going to write that here. And from 7 doesn't have anything. Now 8 doesn't have anything. So we have to find the epsilon closure of 4 and 7. And we know we've already found the epsilon closure of 4 and 7, which is B. So now we can just reuse what we previously found. So if we're in B and we see S, we go back to B. Now the other alphabet symbol, W on B. What happens if we're in B and we see W? So B, I'm going to erase this, and now we're going to check for the W's. So 2 doesn't have any transition with W. 3 doesn't. 4 doesn't. 5 can't go anywhere. 6 can't go anywhere if we see W. 7 can't go anywhere if we see W. 8, we can go to 9. So I'm going to write that here, and then we get epsilon closure of 9. We have to find that. But we already found it previously. We know epsilon closure of 9 leads to C. So we can just reuse what we already found. So W on B, it means if we're in B and we see W, we go to C. Now we consider the symbols for C, because we have to do it for each state. So if we're in C and we see S on C, C is the states 9, 10, and 11. So we're going to check if we're in 9, and does it have any transitions with S? No. 10 with S? No. 11 can go to 12 if it sees an S. So 11 to 12. So that means we find the epsilon closure of 12. Now, from 12, we know the epsilon closure always includes itself, so 12. Then we can get to 10, and from 10, we can get to 11. And since we don't already have these set of states assigned to a variable, I'm going to make a new one and call it D. So if we're in a C and we see S, we're going to go to D. Now W on C. We repeat the same process. W on C. So C is 9, 10, 11. I'm going to erase this here. If we're in 9 and we see W, can't go anywhere. If we're in 10, we see W, can't go anywhere. 11, we see W, we can't go anywhere. So since we can't go anywhere, there's no epsilon closure to find, which means we go to the empty state, sink state. And if we have the empty state, we define all the symbols to lead back to that empty state. So W on C, we go to the empty state, a sink state. I'm going to call that the empty state. And each letter is going to lead back to the empty state. S and W are going to lead back. So that takes care of C. Now we're going to check D, right? Because we need to know where to go if we see S and W on D. So S on D. We know D is the states 10, 11, 12. So I'm going to check that. 10, we see S, can't go anywhere. 11, we see S, we can go to 12. So I'm going to write that here. We need to find epsilon closure of 12. Now, we already found that, right? Epsilon closure of 12 is D. So if we're in D and we see S, it just means we go back to D. And finally, if we're on D and we see W, now we check for these three states if we see W. So 10, we see W, nowhere. 11, we see W, nowhere. 12, we see W, nowhere. We can't go anywhere. So what does that mean? The empty set. So W on D, if we're in D and we see W, we go to the empty set. Now we need to determine which ones are our final states. And we determine which ones are the final states based on the set. So if one of the states in the set is final, then the whole state is final. And since state 5 is in A and it's a final state, that means A is a final state over here. Now we check B. Does B have any final states? Yes, it does. It has 5. So since one of them is final, it makes the whole thing final. Now C. Does C have a final state? Yes, it does. 10 is a final state. So C is final. D is 10 is a final state, so we know D is a final state. And that concludes the tutorial. Hope you enjoyed, and if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments section. Any feedback is greatly appreciated. Thank you.